Hey everyone, it's Robin Cavallaro with the Robin Cavallaro Group of Remax 100, and welcome to the latest version of Military Spouses and Houses. So today we're doing something different. She's not a Remax agent, I promise, but I've got the one, the only, Allie Banholzer. So I
Yay.
adore her.
Aw, thank you.
So go ahead, introduce yourself.
So I am Allie Banholzer. I am the surviving spouse of Colonel Dave Banholzer, who served 25 years active duty in the Air Force. Unfortunately, we lost him on active duty in November of 2016. We have two beautiful daughters, and we live right here in Huntingtown, not too far from Robin. Um, so hopefully I can answer all the questions that you have.
Well, not only that, but you also have the business We're Spirit. And you basically brand all of Calvert County schools and you go and buy a sweatshirt from Huntingtown High School. It was made by yours truly. And I give you a little background. I met Allie, what was it, like 2011-ish?
Mhm.
I got voluntold to be on the Calvert County PTA, which I had no idea what I was walking into. I thought I was walking in there to take notes to go back to Plum Point Middle or elementary, whichever one I was at, and just report back of the day of the monthly activities. And next thing I know, I'm vice president.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Um, but because I was the one person who uttered the phrase, who's the brain dead idiot who thought of this idea? They go, you're in.
It's all yours. Here you
It's
go.
all yours. And
Run with it.
so that's where I got to know you and met your girls. And I think I only met Dave once or twice, but all of a sudden you weren't around and we're texting, and the story of his brain cancer came out, which was one that ripped everyone's heart out because y'all were like the perfect couple. It looked like you had the perfect marriage, perfect family, and so freaking unfair. Let's just own it.
Yeah, I'll own that. Absolutely. Nobody's perfect. We all do our Facebook perfect, but
Yeah.
everybody has their things. A military career and being the spouse of a military aviator brings its challenges.
Yeah.
You're part-time single parent, part-time, married parent. And I think, people who haven't lived the military life might be kind of cocking their head at me funny there, but those that have will absolutely get it. Um,
Mhm.
but that being said, yeah, we had a pretty idyllic life. And
Yeah.
one Saturday morning that all changed. I kind
Oops, you froze for a second.
of liken it to um, a snow globe. You look at it and it's beautiful and gorgeous and everything's there and it's this idyllic scene. And one Saturday morning, somebody picked up our snow globe and shook it really hard. And when everything settled, all of the pieces were still there, but nothing landed in the same place.
No. And so let's back up a little bit. When y'all got to Andrews, how
Mhm.
many places had y'all been stationed at before?
We did 7 moves in 11 years.
I thought I had rough when it was our fourth house in 11 years. That's a cakewalk to you.
Yeah,
You know,
we did 3 moves in 22 months.
oh my God.
So we never hit 3 years on station anywhere that we lived until we got to Andrews.
You
So
know, so how was that for your girls? Because I can't imagine you get them there, they're just starting to make friends, you're making friends, you're finally getting down to that last box that's unpacked, and he comes in, he goes, got orders. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so in particular, one of the moves, um, we got to Fairchild Air Force Base out in Washington State. I was
Yeah.
unpacking. He had been, as soon as we got there, he got sent away to go to Altus for training in a new airframe for him. So he was going to be gone for 4 months. He hadn't even been gone for 2 months or 2 weeks. and he called me up and said, "Stop unpacking. We're moving again."
Oh my God.
So we had arrived, gotten there. He had left for training. I had been 2 weeks, had a lot of the house unpacked, but and
Mhm.
then got the call that nope, we're moving again. So
Oh my God. So,
definitely challenging.
did y'all ever buy a house in the process before you got to Huntingtown?
We did. We owned a house when we were at Travis out in California, Northern California, and then this house here. Now we made a couple moves since we bought this house, but we rented it out while we were gone. Um, Based on what the market was at the
Okay.
time and knowing that we were actually coming back here. We're like, no,
Yeah.
we like our house. We like the school district we're in. We like our community. Why would we sell it and then have to buy it or buy another house similar to it at a higher price when we come back in a couple of years? So
Smart lady, smart lady.
yeah, so we held
Yeah.
on to it, turned it into a rental investment, so to say.
Yeah.
But
It's that's still, I mean, y'all have been all over everywhere. And it's like I used to look at some of your pictures on Facebook and go, oh my God, she's standing there with her arm around the President of the United States. Like, it's just a Tuesday and I'm hanging out with my BFF here. And you're like, I got you, dude. It's y'all have been everywhere, done everything, had the most amazing experience, which most of us are a little jealous of, not gonna lie. I want to tour Air Force One, and I think that would be super cool. But you've flown on it, I believe. Have you?
um technically yes, but Air Force One is actually a call sign. We
Okay,
all know it as the big blue and white 747, right? That's what
right.
everybody calls Air Force One. But technically, Air Force One is a call sign. So, whatever branch of the military the president is flying on, um, when he's on the plane, so if he's flying an Air Force plane, it'll be Air Force One. If it's Marine, Marine One, Navy One,
Okay.
so on and so forth. So, I have flown on the big blue and white 747. The president was not on board, so I did not
Okay.
technically fly on Air Force One.
Minor technicality.
Minor
Yeah.
technical.
But when your husband's flying it, he's like, come on, family, let's go for a ride. You know, all within permission, so nobody get upset here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like he snuck the plane out for a joyride.
No, no.
All with permission. So
Yeah. All within regulation, all
yes.
legal. So now the girls, however, have never flown on it. They've
Okay.
toured it many times, but based on those regulations and circumstances and things that way, they've actually not been able to fly on it. So
Yeah. It's I will say this, I am absolutely blown away at how your girls have handled probably the worst thing a child could go through. They have turned into amazing young women, thriving beyond belief, and just handled this with the utmost of grace.
yeah.
And
I am I
that's
am
due
very,
to you.
very,
Yeah.
very proud of them. Um, Kate graduated college 2 weeks ago.
Yay.
So, she's back home right now. She's been interviewing for her adult job and waiting to hear about that before she commits to either renting something or buying something. And so, um,
Yeah.
waiting on that. But yeah, so she graduated a couple weeks ago. She's going to go back for her master's degree, and she has a huge heart. She actually wants to work with children who have lost a parent, and
Wow.
so which is of course very near and dear to her heart. We just got back yesterday from our TAPS weekend. For those that aren't familiar with TAPS, TAPS is the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. It is a nonprofit that supports anybody who has lost somebody in the military. And of course, they do their big national seminar over
Mhm.
Memorial Day weekend. And both of my girls have come up through what they call Good Grief Camp. And and gotten the support and love and help from that organization, and also our family and me, and things that way. And now they've looped back and are what are called legacy mentors. So they're kids who have come up through Good Grief Camp, and now they're back volunteering their time to help younger kids who are navigating that same journey that they were on.
Oh,
Uh,
that's amazing.
yeah.
And, and thankfully, I don't know what you've been through. And thankful my kids haven't. And it's probably every parent's worst nightmare, worst everything. And the one thing that amazed me the most when y'all were going through this is how supportive Huntingtown was.
Yeah,
And
such an amazing community, from the girls' schools, other civic organizations, right down to the volunteer fire department. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know if you were at the game. That whole time period's kind of a fog to me, but
I missed the game, but I saw the pictures, I saw the videos, and I still tear up thinking about it.
yeah, I still tear up as well. So Kate was a sophomore. She was a cheerleader, and her one goal that year was to make varsity and
Uh-huh.
have her dad see her cheer um, varsity uh, varsity football. And she did not make varsity that year. She was JV,
Yeah.
which was its own um, hurdle for her.
Mhm.
Um, but rightfully so. She wasn't varsity cheerleader material yet. Uh,
Yeah.
but I talked to the coach. I told Wendy, I said, this was Kate's one um, dream or goal, was to have her dad see her cheer varsity for a football game. And so they bumped her up to the varsity squad for one game. And at that point, Dave was bedridden. He couldn't get out of bed. But the volunteer fire department offered to come over and pick him up and transport him over to the game so he could see it. And the community and community support, what was amazing was I was just kind of expecting Kate to come out with the rest of the cheerleaders, Dave and I be kind of parked over near the bleachers
Yeah.
somewhere, and things that way. And unbeknownst to me, not just Huntingtown High School, but most of the county had rallied around this. And at the end of the day, I don't know that I've seen so many people at a game.
Mhm.
The coach did a big cancer awareness. The marching band played the Armed Forces medley. Other high schools' varsity cheer team came to our game that night wearing t-shirt, like PAX had t-shirt. All the PAX for varsity cheerleaders had t-shirts on that says PAX cheer loves HHS cheer. And then they had the big gray cancer ribbon on it for glioblastoma. And I mean, that's the community that we live in. We're right outside of DC. And to me, it feels like the biggest little town, because we're right outside of DC. 45 minutes, I can be in DC doing everything that DC has to offer, going to the Kennedy Center, going seeing the monuments and all of that. And yet we have such this amazing feel of a small town community that just supports everybody and loves everybody.
It,
Um, it's an incredible place.
I joke with people that there's like a giant force field just south of Andrews that when you go through it, you're like transported to Mayberry on the Bay.
Yep.
It is the best small town community where the best part is not everybody's up in your business. So you got your privacy. You don't have
Yep.
Andy running around telling your business to everybody. But when you need someone, I have never seen an area rally to give support to anyone like Calvert does. And then whether it's your story, someone's house burning down, someone's child dying, whatever it was, they come together and it's unbelievable. And to think we're so close to DC, but yet we're so removed from it.
Yes.
It's the best kept secret in, the DC commuting area. Um,
Agreed. Because also, Route 4, it's still a pretty easy commute.
yes.
Route 4 to get to Andrews, get
Mm.
to, I
Coast
don't
Guard
know,
headquarters at Pentagon. Yeah.
Pentagon, yeah, Fort Myers, JBAB, you name it. It's it's not a bad commute. Shh.
No, and I know it's like, but the good thing is you can't just build anywhere.
Right.
We're limited, and we're
We
not going
are.
to go like Fairfax, which is awesome. And it's like I think back to watching your experience, and it's like I'm not so grateful I'm not in your shoes, but I still cringe when I hear people go, "Oh, happy Memorial Day." I'm like, "Oh, happy funeral day."
Yeah.
It's like you can honor those that never came out of uniform and still have your barbecue, go out on the beach, do your boating, have a wonderful weekend and celebrate the beginning of summer, but just pause for a second to give honor and recognition to those who literally had that blank check cashed.
Yes. Yeah. And I try to be really kind and gentle, but I try to educate people a
Yeah.
little bit. Leading up to Memorial Day, I'm leaving the doctor's office and they're like, have a happy Memorial Day, or hope you
Yeah.
have a great 3-day weekend. And I usually just gently say, well, it's a little different for me and the girls.
Mhm.
I said, my husband died on active duty, and that's what Memorial Day is about, is honoring those. We say, those who gave up their tomorrows so we can enjoy our todays.
Yes.
And so I do want everybody to enjoy the holiday weekend
Mhm.
and enjoy the friendship and things that way. And I say that, I don't get mad and bitter. There are some widows who get really upset by being wished a happy Memorial Day. And I try to be gentle and make it more educational of it's different for some people. But I
Mhm.
do hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day. I hope you enjoy your family, but pause for a minute and
Yeah.
remember those that are missing somebody. The girls and I did our TAPS weekend, and then I'm also involved in an organization called US Patriot Sailing.
Oh,
And
what is that?
so it's an organization that have sailboats throughout the United States. There's a couple boats up in Annapolis, one down in
Mhm.
Solomons, a couple out in the San Diego and LA area, and a couple in Seattle. And they teach veterans how to sail and provide a team community for veterans. They've been gracious enough to allow me as a Gold Star on as well, even though I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve. I served in a different way.
I
Um,
was gonna say, it's like you didn't put your name on the check, but you still gave your life to the military.
yes,
You
yes.
know, it's like when you say I do to a service member, you were you're
You're taking on a
serving
heavy commitment as well.
very heavy, very heavy. And that's why it's like I'm doing these videos. It's like because I don't want to ever take anything away from those who were willing to put their name on that check. I wasn't. I make that crystal clear.
Yep.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I would be Private Benjamin. And I would be dismissed probably before they even finish measuring me for the uniform. So it's not my style, it's not my thing. And I probably could not keep my mouth shut long enough to not be doing 1,000 push-ups again in the first 5 minutes of being there.
That would be my problem.
Oh, yeah. They'd be like, we're going to take the earrings out. I'm like, no, 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 no. And they're like, we're going to put your hair up. I'm like, no, I don't like that style. And they're like, oh, and the nails have to go. I'm like, oh, that's a hard no. And then they would show me the shoe. I'm like, do you have anything with a little bit more pointed toes, spiker heel? Can we get this uniform tailored a little bit? This is not really flattering. Um, so to all the women who have done this, God bless you. Y'all are badass. I am weak ass. I am. Um, I also want to bring awareness to what families go through because especially the kids, they're the forgotten part in all of this. Yeah, your girls, I wouldn't even begin to count the number of schools they've been through and the number of times they've been moved from one house to another, to another, to another, to another. And my kids were only, they started school in Virginia Beach. So they just did Virginia Beach, Connecticut, and here for schools. So incredibly lucky in the whole scheme of military stuff.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine what it's like when someone goes, well, I was California, I was Texas, I was Ohio, I was Japan, I was Germany, I was here, I was there. And you go, wow, your passport has more stamps than mine ever will.
Yeah, and we were actually pretty fortunate as well.
Mhm.
Um, Dave and I were a little bit older when we got married, and we were a little bit older yet when we had kids.
Yeah.
And so they did, they went to school in, let me see if I can do this. So here, Newport, Rhode Island, Washington State, and then back to here. But the majority of both, we landed here when the girls were in elementary school.
Okay.
So fortunately, they didn't have the moves that so many military families have in like middle school and high school when it
Mhm.
just becomes so hard to move, especially high school when you're trying to get graduation requirements and um, get what you need if you're college bound to do that and make friends and sports teams and things that way. So we were lucky in that regard. But yeah, they went to about they went to schools in 4 different states.
That's wild. And yeah, like I said, we were so lucky. I mean, because the worst part was Connecticut, where we started one school, it was not exactly the ideal fit. So we moved them to a different one for the next 3 years that was a much better fit.
We did
And
the same thing in Newport. Started in one, not a good fit, moved to another.
yeah, and we were doing Catholic school there and we did Catholic school in Virginia Beach, but we moved to Calvert. The schools were comparable to where they were before in the Catholic schools in the other states. And I have no complaints with what happened, with my kids going through Huntingtown and the two Plum Points. We were
Mhm.
very blessed. Um, yeah,
Yeah, us as well. I had people ask me, did you put your kids in private school? Why didn't you put your kids in private school? At the time my girls were going through, so both, Kate has graduated college, Carrie is a rising junior in
yeah.
college. And you would probably have the school statistics better than me. And I know there's some legality of what you can and can't say. Um, So I'll say it. At the time my girls were in high school, all four of our high schools in the county were in the top 2,000 in the country,
Mhm.
right? And when you have that caliber of schools, and based on a number of things, not just test scores, but test scores and teachers student ratios and programs available and AP classes available, things that way. When you have that caliber of school across the entire county, not just one high school within the county, that speaks volumes. Um, and of course speaks for resale value of your home and all of those
Of course,
things,
yeah,
but
yeah,
right. But I never coming in to Calvert schools, I never felt the need to put my kids in a private school or do something different. They
no,
got very good. They both went to great universities. They both launched, they both got scholarships. Like Calvert County schools set them up well. Huntingtown in particular for us, but Calvert County schools set them up well for
yeah.
what they wanted to do in the future.
So changing the subject a little bit, how did you get into Wear Your Spirit and designing the shirts and printing them? Was this something that you're like, my kid needs a shirt, I'm gonna try this out, and it just take off?
Nope, by complete accident. So my background is actually as a criminologist. Um,
So the two have nothing to do with each other.
Nothing to do with each other whatsoever. So I was a criminologist. I worked for the Spokane Police Department. I was set up on a blind date with this dashing young Air Force pilot, and we went like, oh, this will be fun for a couple months, but it'll never last. 25 years, 2 kids, 7 moves. I can't even count how many cars. I guess it lasted. Um, but
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so, and I know I'll make this kind of short. So I thought, well, no problem. At the time I was getting the work experience I had to have to be able to be an analyst for the FBI. And I was testing, I did the written tests and physical tests and things that way. And I met Dave and he proposed. And I thought, okay, a career in the FBI and a career in the Air Force are not going to jive well together. So I gave
No.
up my dreams of being in the FBI. And but I still thought, oh, well, that's okay, we'll move, but I can still work in criminology where we move. Like there's police department everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I can do some crime analysis. We made our very first move 4 months after we got married, and it was to Scott Air Force Base, which is right across the river, right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay. So I looked into applying and working for the St. Louis Police Department, at which time I found out that they had an ordinance to work for the government or the municipality. You had to live within the city limits. And Dave was in a job that, based on his career, he had to live within a certain response time to Scott Air Force Base. So the rest of the police departments in that area were not large enough to need what I did as a criminologist. And so that was the rapid, okay, I guess I'm going to take my skill set and do something else. And maybe it's good that we're not in person and we're doing this by video, because what I ended
oops. You
up
froze.
being and doing was being the contract liaison for TRICARE. Yeah, for TRICARE with to Scott Air Force Base. And so I knew the ins and outs of TRICARE very well. Uh anyways, so I did that, and then we moved again. So here I'll give you the quick. We went Fairchild to Scott Air Force Base to Travis Air Force Base to Andrews to Newport, Rhode Island, back out to Fairchild, and then back to Andrews. And so along about Travis was where Kate was born, out in California. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. Just going to support,
Mhm.
be a stay-at-home mom, right? And then we move here and we have Caroline, and Caroline was about 6 months old. And I looked at Dave and I said, I love our children, but I am losing my mind. I need to do something where I have and can use my brain. Um, I looked at him and I said, I've got to do more than wiping butts and noses. At the time, they were very little. Obviously, there is far more to child rearing than just that. I'm not,
Yes, but that
right.
that sums it down into the
Yes.
worst of it, you
Yes.
know.
And so I decided to start my own business. And at that time, I was into scrapbooking. So I got a little bit of equipment and I started prototyping products for the scrapbook industry. And then I would license them off to larger manufacturers
Oh,
and and do that. So long about 2007, 2008, I'm happy as a lark. This is what I'm doing. It will move anywhere with us. I don't have to shut down my business. I don't have to create a new customer base every time we move. And I can still be at home with my kids, which was my goal as well, and raise my
yeah.
babies. So um 2007, 2008, with the housing crunch and the burst happened to the scrapbook industry. One was that a lot of people didn't have the discretionary money to spend on it. And two, it largely went digital. And I was
The
making,
digital one. Yes.
yeah, and I was making physical products. So I looked around and I had this equipment, and I'm like, what can I do with this equipment? How can I reinvent this business? And it was the same type of equipment that you use to make signs and banners. So
Oh,
I walked into an athletic store and they had a huge banner up on the wall. And I said, how much did you pay for that banner? And the guy said, $500. I said, call me next time, I'll do it for three. And he's like, well, what I really need is somebody that can print custom t-shirts for me. He's like, can you print custom t-shirts? I'm like, oh, sure, I can print custom t-shirts, no problem. I never printed a t-shirt in my life.
You're like, I'm gonna figure this out real quick.
I'm gonna figure this out. So go home, start Googling. I'm creative, I'm crafty. Start Googling. I go out to Washington State and I buy equipment and I take 3 days of training and I come back and now I'm printing t-shirts. And then as I'm printing t-shirts, somebody walks in and says, hey, can you do embroidery? Sure, I can do embroidery. Bought an embroidery machine, started doing embroidery, and that just led to another, sublimation and then all of these other processes. And I'm also a perpetual learner. I get really bored and stir crazy if I'm not learning something new. It doesn't have to be business, it doesn't have to be grandiose, but constantly reading and learning something new. So what started out on my kitchen counter making stickers and paper now is in a 4,000 square foot warehouse with about 10 employees and 7 lines of manufacturing.
And you can basically put logo or image on in almost any product there is.
Yes, if you can print on it, we probably do it. And if we don't, we know somebody that does.
Yes, and I'm absolutely amazed by that. So all my Remax friends, you can call her, she'll ship to you. She
Yes.
does a phenomenal job. Just
Yes.
saying, not because she's here, but because she does. So
And
yeah,
I already have the Remax logo and I already have permission to do it. So I can embroider shirts for
sure.
you, whatever you like.
Whatever you want, it's balloon can go on everything. So
Yes.
I mean, it has been absolutely heart-wrenching and amazing to watch your journey because I remember a mutual friend called and said, Dave is in the hospital. They think he has brain cancer. And then I kind of gave you your space because I'm like, I can't imagine what you're going through. And then ended up reaching out to you. But then watching he's doing better, he's doing worse, he's doing better. And then ultimately, we're at the end. And
Mhm.
then to watch how you and the girls handled his funeral was the utmost grace. And I don't know a better way to put it because I can't imagine the three of you burying the man who meant the most to you at such a young age. You know, it's not like he was 85 and you go, man, he lived a long, happy life.
He was 47 years old.
Yeah, he was still that at 57 now, that's a baby.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was young.
Yeah.
And so he and to watch the community come together and then to watch y'all grieve publicly because you've been open about the pain, the struggle, the everything. And then to see you, next thing you know, you're up there, you've ditched the president. Now you're hanging out with Gary Sinise and you're like, sorry, dude, that you're yesterday. Bye-bye. And you're up there on stage with these people doing all this stuff and just coming into your own and make letting the world know I didn't die. I lost half of me, but I'm still here. I'm still thriving. I'm still doing. And look at all these amazing resources that are out there for the families that nobody knew existed until you started making them public.
Yeah. I say this about military. I can't even say I say it. I stole it from another military spouse who's
Yeah.
a dear friend of mine. But military spouses are number one at being number two. We're really good at being at home, taking care of the home, taking care of the children. Yes, we also have careers, but our careers are always second to the military because you've got to pick up and move. And we're really good at building communities and instant friendships because
Yeah.
I've got 2 kids. They're both girls. They're both involved in the same sports. And guess what? Saturday morning they both need to be at a
It-
location at
Yeah.
the exact same time, but the location is not the same location. It's on opposite ends of the county, right?
Yeah.
And so, you're like, hey, I know your kid also has to be here and here. So how about you take these two and go there? I'll take these two and go there, and we'll
Mm,
just make it work, right?
mm,
And that's what we do to support our community, support the
mm.
military and things that way. Um, when Dave died, certainly a piece of me died with it, and with
Yes.
him. And of the struggle was reinventing myself and allowing myself to be number one and to shine and still support the girls and things that way. Um, and I tend to have a big personality.
You're
Um,
kidding.
uh, who knew? Um,
You
but
would have never guessed.
yeah, there was a 6 month period there when I only got out of bed if my children needed something. Um, and I only went somewhere if my children needed to be somewhere.
Mm.
And if it was the grocery store, my hair was in a bun with a baseball hat on, and I was head down and I barely talked to anybody because I was really angry too, because everybody in the grocery store was just going about their normal lives. And I'm like, don't you know that my world has been shattered? Or people would, be short with me. And I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, your world is perfect, even though everybody has their own struggles. That was just my anger at the time. Everybody has their own struggles. And I got to about the
But you
sixth
were
month.
valid to have anger. You were
Sure.
very valid. I mean, it's like you have this very healthy man who wakes up with a headache one day, and next thing you know, your world implodes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it wasn't even that, um, so the story goes, the way it happened was he'd actually gotten back on Friday from flying President Obama back from Cambodia and Laos. And Saturday morning, he went and picked Kate up from a church lock-in, went to Starbucks, got us coffee and muffins, brought him home. I was getting Caroline ready to go to gymnastics, and we are all sitting around the kitchen. The girls were drinking hot cocoa and eating, and I was muffins and coffee. And Dave walked up to me and goes, "Look at what my ankle's doing." And his ankle was twitching. And I watched what looked like a tidal wave roll up his body as the muscles contracted from his ankle all the way up. And when it hit his chest, he grabbed his chest and he collapsed onto me and said, "I can't breathe."
Oh
And
my God.
I lowered him down to the ground. And I I was like, is he having a heart attack? Is he? And it turns out it was a grand mal seizure, is what he was having. So took him to Calvert. They did a CT, found a mass in his brain. They took him up to Walter Reed. I spoke with the doctors up there. The story's very long, but we don't have all day. So spoke with the doctors up there. 2 days later, he had 9 hours of brain surgery. And when the surgeon came out, they told us he had 14 months to live. And so it was um, both quick and traumatic, and then long and drawn out with anticipatory grief and death. Um, and so it's this, my heart goes out to anybody, whether they're military or not, that is a caregiver, that is tending to a spouse, a child, a parent that's got a long-term illness. Um, because it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, to take care of my kids and take care of him, and literally watch the smartest man I've ever known watch his brain be eaten by cancer slowly, a little bit every day, until he reverted to basically being an infant.
It's
Yeah. Um, so now we are 7.5 years out. It'll be 8 years in November since he's passed. And I'm allowing myself to no longer be number two. Both my kids are out of the house.
mm,
He has passed. I'm not I I'm not going to play small anymore. Every day above ground's a good day.
it,
Like, we don't know when our last day is going to be. So, man, I'm just going for it.
Yeah, it is like I saw a picture of you on Facebook up on the top of that little mast on the sailboat. And I
Yeah,
was like, what the is she doing now? It's like, oh my God. And that's why it's like, that's why I reached out to you. Not only do I absolutely adore you, but
yeah,
it's like your story is so positive and it gives other people hope that there is life after loss and that it's okay to take the black off, to say, I love you, I miss you, you're still part of my life. There probably isn't a day that goes by you don't think about him.
absolutely not.
And it's okay to be out there laughing and smiling and enjoying life and all it has to be. Because you and I had this conversation not too long ago. Being an empty nester is awesome. Sorry, kids. It's I'm enjoying my second best childhood. Um,
Right. Exactly.
because now I don't have somebody tell me no.
Right.
It's not like asking mom for permission.
Right. Well, my girls are like, Mom, you're having a midlife crisis. I'm like, I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm like, I know you didn't know me when I was in college and a young
Yeah.
adult before I had kids, but I love to sail. I love to boat. I loved rock climbing. I did all of these things. And then, very happily, by choice, I chose to raise children. But when you do that, you set part of yourself aside, right? And
It-
you have those responsibilities. And now that you two have launched and you're off and you're adulting, I have, of course, mother's job's never done, but I have done my job
Never.
to launch the baby birds from the nest. I get to go back and do all that again.
Yeah. And it's like, and while I did not lose a spouse to death, I lost one to divorce.
Yes.
So again, I went from being the best number two to being number one. And that is a very, very different thing to do.
Mhm.
It is, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Look completely different. And so Morgan made the comment to me a couple of weeks ago. She goes, Mom, I don't even know who you are now. You don't act anything like the mom we know. I'm like, I act like the mom, the person I was before I got married.
Mhm.
You know, this is who your father met, and this is who I am again now because I love to laugh. I love to dance. I love to have fun. I love to be around people. I don't do well sitting at home twiddling my thumbs and I'm not going to take up knitting or,
Right. Yeah.
basket weaving. No.
There's a small part of me that hopes, and even for people that are watching this, there's a small part of me that hopes I can be that example to
Mhm.
people to you can go through some really tough stuff and um, the worst, darkest days of my life and not just survive, but thrive and come out and learn some lessons from that. And it taught me, losing Dave taught me how to live.
Yeah.
Um, and so I hope that I hope I can inspire people to not have to lose somebody or not have to go through those dark days before they decide to start living.
And I think that is a perfect analogy. It's like so many people give up so much of themselves either because of the relationship they're in, or because of their children, or because of the work, or because they go down a dark path or whatever. And May is Military Awareness Month. It's also Mental Health Month.
Mhm.
And so the two go hand in hand. And the stats are sad that we still lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. Um, Several weeks ago, we lost a very dear friend who was a vet to suicide. And his wife is going through now what you've been through. And she's given us permission to be vocal about it. Otherwise, I would never say anything publicly. But there needs to be more mental health of care available to families, spouses, the active duty person, anyone who's connected to them, because this is not an easy life.
No.
It's, sorry, we're gonna send you to voicemail. Good point I had going here, but thank you. That was appropriate timing. It's, we've got to do better to take care of each other. We've got to be better, the military itself, to be more supportive and give the kids the help they need when transitioning, because it's horrible.
It is.
Especially you take child with autism. But you've got divorce rate is so high in the military.
Mhm.
What can we do to try to give support to people to help do that? Dealing with cancer, dealing with other long-term illnesses. How do you
Yeah,
do that?
and I do not want to take anything away from the mental health crisis that we have in the
Yeah.
military, in the number of military individuals who die by
Yeah.
suicide. Um, but we have another silent epidemic in the military that most people aren't aware of. And I'm trying to give a little bit of voice to. Most people aren't aware that in 2021, the statistics shifted, and in 2023, 30% of military deaths were by suicide. 35% of military deaths were from toxic exposure and long-term illness.
Eh,
And so more than 22 a day
mm,
are dying because they served and were not taken care of with proper equipment and have come home with these illnesses. And it's not just cancer, it's Lou Gehrig's and all sorts of different illnesses. In
mhm.
fact, the PAC Act that passed in 2021 identified 17 different illnesses that if a service member, anytime in their lifetime, whether they're on active duty or have separated or retired, if they come down with any of those 17 illnesses, it is automatically ruled service connected. Um,
That's good to know, because a friend of mine, his father passed away as a result of exposure to chemicals, and
mhm,
they're still fighting to get the death ruled service connected so that his surviving spouse could have his benefits. And she's in her 90s. So it's like, just let her have her peace.
mhm,
Um, I mean, my great uncle passed away from mesothelioma from exposure on a Navy ship.
mhm.
So it it's it's crazy the damage that's done to those who serve. And it's like, just protect them. Give them the
Yeah.
right, give them a clean environment, give them the right body armor, the right
And
everything they need.
yeah, and some of it, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not trying to point fingers or anything that. Some of it is unintended consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't
Absolutely.
believe the military said, "Oh yeah, we know this is going to cause problems. We're going to send them anyways. We're going to do it anyways." I don't believe that. I
Absolutely
believe
not.
we're
No.
learning, after the fact and things that way. But it is an epidemic, and we are in such a military-rich environment here. There are thousands of individuals like me, just a few years later, that are dealing with this and losing loved ones. Um,
Yeah.
because of toxic exposure. And and we've been trained by Hollywood to fear the knock on the door, right? And that somebody was killed in action. Also horrific. Also
Yes.
devastating. I don't rack and stack death or grief. It's Everybody has their own personal experience, and I can't say my experience is better or worse than yours, right? But also where we're at now, if you just take suicide and exposure illness, 65% of military deaths are from those two causes. Um, at this point, the KIA deaths are less than 5% because we have pulled out of Iraq and Afghanistan. There are still some, and so there's still some KIA deaths. But
Right. And yeah, but that is a staggering number.
mhm,
And no, by neither one of us are ever going to say conspiracy, 10 hat,
nope,
Reynolds wrap is in the drawer. It was not going, oh my God, let's try this, let's try this. Here, you drink the cyanide and let's see what happens. It doesn't work that way. These were chemicals that everyone thought was safe at the time that have been proven not to be. There, disclaimers out.
right,
Um,
yeah,
but
or
it doesn't make it easier for the loved one who's sitting there dealing with the consequences.
exactly.
Yeah. And regardless, there's a lot of people at Arlington and around the country that put their name on that check and it got cashed.
Yep.
And there's a lot of widows and widowers and children and grandchildren that do the wreath laying on Christmas, that are there with the flags on Memorial Day, and those 2 days a year have a completely dramatic difference in meaning.
Yes.
So, and I will say this from everyone. Thank you for what you and David did. He was an amazing man and he was lucky to have you. So,
Thank you. Thank
and I know Calvert's lucky to have you too. So, and
you.
I'm
Thank
very grateful I got to know you over the
you.
years.
I appreciate that. I'm
So,
grateful to have your friendship and grateful to have a voice here today to be able to say uh, and hopefully help other people who are
yeah,
either on a similar journey or hey, looking for a house on Calvert. Go see
either
Robin.
way, we got you. Or a t-shirt, pens, notepads, what
Awards, you name it.
banner.
Senior banners, graduation. You need senior banners. We're doing them.
There you go. There you go. So you can put them all up on the overpass
That's
instead of
right.
the giant sheet. Yeah.
That's right.
Those
Exactly.
always crack me up is a sheet where somebody took, a giant
Spray
marker.
paint or a big
Yeah.
marker. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, congrats. And you're like, hope you spelled it right. So, because you'll actually spell it correctly.
I will. Yeah.
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 And you won't put in there something weird like some of these Walmart cakes we see this spiff one. It's
You can
like they
actually
actually
get a
wrote
picture.
period.
You can get a picture of the person on them.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen your kids' pictures hanging up in your office area.
Yep.
You do a
Yep.
kick-ass job, woman. So,
Thank
all
you. Thank you.
right. I adore you, and I hope to see you in person very soon.
Yes, we need to grab coffee, lunch, something.
Yes, ma'am. I
All
have
right.
a great one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.